Hi everyone, thank you very much. I value the privilege of having this conversation. I need to see that slide, so I'm going to stand here. It's going to be quite a test of whether I can stand still. So when Carl asked me how he introduced me, I said, you can tell them I'm not an alcoholic, but I have potential. I have quite an unusual brief. I don't know where Angela is in the audience. I have a very broad brief, so if it does look like I have ADD as I flick between the slides, it's probably not entirely untrue. But I have a few topics I was given to just cover and discuss. So I think the first thing to start with is who I am. I am responsible for infrastructure and operations at Standard Bank. We are on quite an interesting journey at the moment, and a lot of the things I'll share with you tonight are the little bits and pieces we are doing as part of transforming our organization. I am a last child in a very small family. And if any of you in this audience today are the last child in any family and you tell me you're not spoiled, lies. Absolute lies. You are so indulged, you have no idea. I am the mother of a beautiful daughter who got married on Saturday. So I'm particularly proud of her. It was a beautiful event. I am a terrible sister. I am, obviously because I'm the spoiled little one, I'm a terrible sister. If I don't get my way, well, physicality can always solve the problem. I am a cousin to two amazing gentlemen. They're both extreme academics, so family dinner is quite interesting. No one really sees the need to have a conversation, and it's quite comfortable. I grew up on a farm. I am a tomboy in all ways. I know it doesn't look like it today, but I had to do a board presentation. So this is not normal. I get it. We needed to have jeans and t-shirts. I get it. Sorry, guys. The board would not have appreciated my jeans and t-shirts. So I am actually really a tomboy, and these shoes are killing me. So I'm extremely adventurous. I do a little bit of everything. I don't do a little bit of everything twice because sometimes the period to recover is longer, and crutches when you have to drive yourself to the office and get upstairs and escalators is never a fantastic thing. I am exceptionally curious. I often find myself, and I'm sure you all do this at some stage too, I often find myself at 2 o'clock in the morning in a rabbit hole that you have no idea how you got there. You started off researching some technical question or answer, and by the morning you are reading up on the mating habits of penguins in the Antarctic. So I do a lot of that, but I am exceptionally curious. And I have to tell you that I think that is one of the values that you need to bring to bear in today's world. I am incredibly courageous when I say that as the curious, and I have to say that, and now I'm going to link this to being this last child that's so indulged. And the reason I say that is because last children don't really entirely understand consequence. They have a sense. You get told. Someone tells you this, don't touch it. You get told, but you've got this whole troop and crew of people who are protecting you, and so you have courage. You have courage to do things that you've said you shouldn't do, and it's one of the things I bring to bear in my daily life now that I think actually is the catalyst to a lot of the change that I'm involved in. So I think that courage is essential. I think that all of you should bank your courage. I think that there's the forgiveness versus permission conversation we have to have sometime during this evening, exceptionally important. I also look after my aging estate of my mother and my aunt. They're particularly interesting. If you want to hear interesting stories about dustbin bags and yoga tubs, I'll chat to you afterwards, but it gets particularly interesting because dustbin bags and yoga tubs are an essential part of not being in the dustbin. I'm an animal lover. I'm absolutely passionate about the colour purple, and I need to. This is a sick joke. So just so you understand the announcements of Sunday night, I did get from one of my team members actually, who knows how passionate I am about purple, that if you mix the blue colour of our hem and the red colour of red light, what do you get? Purple. So that was a sick joke that was sent to me on Monday morning after the announcement on Sunday evening. Absolute animal lover, don't spend much time in the country or actually in town. So I have had my animals confiscated from me. They now live on a beautiful farm in the Midlands, but I absolutely adore my animals. From a work perspective, before taking on the role of the head of infrastructure and operations at Standard Bank, I was the enterprise architect for infrastructure at the bank. And when they approached me to take the role, I was like, hell no, I don't do people. So it's been a very, very interesting 15 months for me. I understand now why I was chosen to take on the role. And I will tell you I'm having a jewel. It is properly tough. I will try and reflect on some of the things that were quite a jewel through the discussion I have tonight. But I think there's some things that beautiful people like you who are so open to this new world we're facing, it's going to be amazing. We just have this world of opportunity in front of us, and we have to embrace every part of it. So that's the me. Happy to have the conversations about a little bit more if anyone's curious about some of this stuff. I forgot to mention that I'm also a godmother to 2 little 7-year-olds, and I also have to tell you that their mother has never trusted me for them to stay at my home. So there's a message in that too, right? So I'm not going to say much more about this slide. It was a very interesting Sunday night. I'm going to call Karen out now because I got the news before Karen did. So I got the news from a very strange source, received this text, almost fell off my chair, probably dropped my drink on my phone, told you I'm not an alcoholic yet, and sent Karen this message, and I was like, what the? Like, are you my new IBM account manager? So it's quite interesting. Sorry? Probably a few hours afterwards, I happened into my mailbox because now there was a storm of conversations about this announcement, and surprise, surprise, I happened along the official news about the Microsoft GitHub. Exactly. So I decided that we were having large vendor domination on my Sunday night, and I needed to drink a little more. So my thoughts. So I have given it some thought. I have to reserve some of the comments I actually want to make, and not for reasons other than I have to have faith in the earth and what will come about for us. I do think that journalists will always put these beautiful messages out there. I don't think there will be messages, and I've yet to see a merger that doesn't change companies' personalities. I am very hopeful that the personality changes in the right direction, and I think that is something we need to pay attention to. Other than that, I'm not going to make any comment because in my current position, I work on both sides of that fence. So one of the briefs I got was to speak about open source in the enterprise, and I thought I would actually just share a little story with everyone about Standard Bank's journey as a regulated enterprise to open source and what it has meant or done for us. So it's quite interesting. It actually strangely starts many years ago. It starts with one of our governance teams deciding that they needed to govern the use of open source. So initially, the way they governed it is they created this open source committee, and you could submit a little paper to this committee, and you could ask to use something. If you were standing members of the committee, you had to respond to this paper and say whether you were for it or not. And actually, they were more worried about the license agreements under it than the value it was providing. It became quite onerous. You were always challenged to use the proprietary-based vendor product within the organization that currently fulfilled the particular function you were trying to deliver, and in a lot of respects it became such an onerous governance process that essentially people gave up. And if that's what the governance teams are trying to do to control the risk to the organization, that is what we care about. I think the interesting thing there is that as a regulated enterprise, we have processes upon processes to manage risk, to ensure compliance, to report back, and we've got ourselves into the position of believing that having a proprietary agreement with a software organization actually is our insurance to risk. I will tell you, and I won't tell you vendors, that's an interesting comment, because in my role in operations in this year, I've had one very large proprietary vendor take my African core banking down for 3 days for firmware upgrade. So where was my insurance? I had all the contracts in place. I had done everything I should have done. Had all the insurance in place. And there I was having a conversation with the bank about their core banking for our entire African region being down for 3 days. So I think that the banks went and they believed they were getting this insurance out. So what did we do? And they're members of this audience, although they don't work for Standard Bank anymore. So maybe I need a tissue and let me cry. We decided that we would spark the system. We got a few brave people, and we would spark the system and light a few fires and actually give people some pink tickets. So essentially they got the mandate that said, just don't break the law. Don't do what you have to do, don't break the law. It had a few excellent results. They managed to use some commercial tools, but largely a bunch of open source tools to achieve what the objective was, is to create cadence, allow people to self-serve, and do a few things that the organization was trying desperately for, but all our governance and all our compliance and all our processes and all our, from architecture through the design process down to the end of the earth, would take you 12 to 18 months to do. They actually called the team Chop Chop. They were after creating this cadence and pushing this. And the team were really effective. They managed to drive a whole bunch of features into the organization that when we wiped our eyes and these people left our organization, we had to realize that very quietly and subliminally, the level of adoption of this very brave and rogue piece of work that was being done was actually massive. And that we had critical services on it. And surprise, surprise, we didn't have an insurance policy on these tools. We managed the outages when they happened. We just didn't fall back into what governments had done to us. So that created a bit of a let's understand how we can embrace this more. Slightly in parallel, and probably earlier start than this, what had happened to us is we were trying to make open source a first-class citizen. That was actually our term. On all our architectural documentation, we said open source is first-class citizen. But what we realized is that we're so stuck in all the governance process and compliance requirements we'd placed upon ourselves that even though it was a first-class citizen, people were too afraid. They were too afraid to go against the processes and the things that had been done in this space to go and challenge the system. So the easiest thing to do was to go and drop a few million and get your insurance policy and actually move your program, then challenge the system. What it took is us delivering a Vision 2020 strategy that said, actually, open source first. So what's happening in our organization right now is we are challenging everything. We obviously associated with a lot of our cloud strategies. We have a very stated public cloud strategy, and all of our engineering capabilities that we're driving. Open source has now become your first choice. So now you have to explain to us why you cannot choose an open source method of delivery. We are still stuck slightly in needing subscription-based insurance policies for ourselves, but we've definitely gone a long way in driving the kind of mental position on an organization that was stuck in being, we're too scared, got to have your insurance policy, can't do this. The other comment I want to make, and it's really actually about us being bad citizens and bad community members. The banks, I'm going to say broadly, but I am going to say we are definitely one of these. We take from the community all the time. But we are not responsible community members because we're not yet prepared to give back. So while we're driving the need to do open source first, I do think our next step on this journey is to say, well, now let's be responsible members. If we want this community to be as strong as it needs to be, that we get this insurance we believe we've been after for so long, we need to become more responsible members. What we need to do is to decide how we would manage, and notice I didn't use the word govern, how we would manage what's competitive versus what isn't. And there is a lot that we do that has zero in competitive nature. And we need to start being more responsible. So that's just my story on the journey we've taken as a regulated enterprise and how open source has tried to fit in and where we've had challenges. Today still, there are pockets of people who are way too nervous to try. What I've gone and done for our function is I've just set them targets. And you'll see at the end, I'll get to it, I have a few of don't give the direct targets, I've set them, but I've gone and said, if you don't set them a target, if it's not going to affect your bonus, you actually aren't going to do it. So let's see how 2019 works for you. Another part of my brief was to tell you what my feeling was about the ideal scenario for infrastructure in business. And I'm not going to try and sing any Queen to you, but kind of like that's what's stuck in my head. They want it all, they want it now, and they can't get enough of it once they've got it. So Standard Bank has been on a massive journey, and it's been largely framed by lean, agile, and scaled agile framework. And we've also been doing a lot of work on our cultural change. There's loads more to be done. absolutely knows more. You don't take a 150-something-year-old organization and think you're going to change that culture in an instant. You also have people who are sitting on the digital immigrant side versus the digital native side, and sometimes those do not naturally culturally meet. So in this journey we've been on, the primary drive behind this was to give to our CIOs the ownership they needed to control their own flow and cadence. So what does infrastructure need to do to give them this flow and cadence? We need to be able to give them a trough that they can just come and eat and drink as much as they like from this trough. We need to be able to allow them to be in control of their cadence. What does that then mean to the team that I run today? Well, it means that that team has to transform themselves. It means that that team has to go on a journey of working out how we become those DevOps automation style engineers. Now, the quite interesting thing for me is that historically, we've called everyone an engineer. You're a storage engineer, and you're a backup, and you're a data, and we always put the word engineering. And then what we do to these people is we say, no, we're doing engineering now. And we need DevOps engineers. But what we don't do for these people is explain the path to them. So we've spent a bit of time recently trying to describe a path for these people so that we are able to empower these CIOs with something that will allow them to actually engineer their own outcomes. I'm going to be successful when I've taken the beautiful minds that sit in my team and I've helped them go along this journey of transforming themselves. And I found a beautiful HackerMoon article, if anyone wants it, I'll send it to Angela, but a beautiful HackerMoon article that actually describes the journey you need to take on this route. And it describes what coding languages, what you need to know about the cloud providers, and it takes people who historically been these sysadmins and it talks them through how they transform themselves. I'm not naive about the fact that some of these people won't transform. Having said that, there'll always be some core engineering functions. I'm always going to have a network I'm running. I'm always going to have physical stuff. Maybe not that much as we take our cloud journey. Now that I've described that to you, we then get into a very interesting conversation of what happens above the line and below the line. And one of the decisions we've had to make, and it had to be a very direct decision, for a while we were trying to work our journey out to allow CIOs to control their cadence and give them all the self-service, we try to engineer below the line. And actually we're back. We aren't an IT shop, we aren't a dev shop. We had to be very clear about where provided value to our business for us to engineer. And that's had to make us make a few decisions. So we were going on a private cloud OpenStack journey and we've had to make a few changes to that path. Having said that, the team I spoke about that no longer work for me, they managed to very successfully, while everyone was using proprietary or subscription-based tools, they managed to very quietly, under the cover, not asking for permission but seeking forgiveness later, actually deploy the open tools. And they were successful. And it runs some of our core services right now. So we had to make that decision. What we then needed to do is decide, so what do we do to empower these CIOs so that they can create resilient things? So it's not going to help that we can give them all these self-service things, but because they don't have a history of designing for failure, they have a history of designing business features, how do we help them? So the current piece of work we're working on is creating system teams. And these system teams are meant to have test engineers in quality engineers, not test engineers, quality engineers. They meant to have quality engineers in them. They meant to have automation engineers, DevOps engineers, security engineers, and it's this team that's meant to support these CIOs along their journey as long as infrastructure has created this trough of stuff they can use. The always secure comments I make there speaks to the fact that as we do this, how do we make sure that we don't end up with an absolute disaster as people are learning the oats and trying to work out how to make things resilient? So we're obviously having to work a lot on ensuring that things are going to fail, we know that. How do you design for failure? How do we engineer so that we're resilient enough for them to manage their failure? And maybe some of the things we shouldn't engineer. Maybe there's some of the things that add business value and we should engineer. So we do this thing right now, and we're not great at it, but we've delivered 2 so far this year, and we call them toolboxes. Call them what you want. It's essentially a set of things we stick in the capability, dashboards, scripts, builds, whatever it is that particular piece of work needs, and we hand these toolboxes to the CIOs. We are in very early days of this, but the idea there is that we can make infrastructure invisible for them, hand them a bunch of toolboxes, and they can achieve their business outcomes. And when they achieve their business outcomes, they get to manage their flow and cadence. I don't get shouted at because my firewalls went to South America and not to South Africa, and I've now delayed them. And that is a true story. So I'm expecting to deliver firewalls, and currently they're sitting in customs in Mexico. Strange. So to that, I then reflected that I'd share with everyone what my 2019 goals would be, and I've been totally committed to this. I made the comment that when I took this role on 15 months ago, I said to me, well, I don't do people, I can't do this job. I'm not the girl for you, you need to go and find someone else that's better with people. And I've actually learned that along the way, I can do people. My people is finished by the end of the day, I won't lie. I really do get done with people by a certain point of the day. I'm committing myself to transforming this infrastructure organization into a group of system team members that are responsible to the business outcomes. I put culture there because we've also had to learn that we created the system that these people struggle inside now. We put them into the system. It's us that put all these things around them that make them feel constrained, that make them feel like they need to ask for permission. So, I've been fortunate enough, the organization has been very good to my journey, and I actually have an industrial psychologist in my team. I have an industrial psychologist and I have a creative consultant, and it is their sole job to make sure we can help people through this change. And it's been very interesting. We've had to learn that we no longer use authority. I have had interesting conversations with my human capital counterparts where the organization seeks retribution for whatever this engineer might have made a mistake with. And I'm like, no, we do positive punishment. That person will update the CMDB. That will be the punishment. So that's been really interesting. It's delivered some really good value to us. And it's really a strong drive to culture. I think the challenge you face in a large organization like ours is that it's very easy to fall back behind a committee and a forum and ask for permission and get someone to sign off consensus on what it is you're trying to achieve. So the virtualization, keeping it simple, is a comment, and Kieran's busy throwing daggers at me right now. My new IBM account manager is busy throwing daggers at me. And that's that we made our virtualization stacks largely very complex. So what we then needed to do is engineer across every possible product, build every possible product, and actually we've got this public cloud journey. So why did we do this? So what we've gone and done, and one of the 2019 direct targets is to untangle all of this mess, simplify what stays on-prem, and push as much as we can into our public cloud outcomes. On the less proprietary, so I hope I'm not offending anyone. So if you are one of the vendors who are proprietary database providers in our organization, it is true. I have a very direct target to have less proprietary vendor builds. And I will set targets for my team. Well, they've got a few that are leading up to the end of this year, and then they'll have direct targets in 2019 that says less proprietary, and I'm adding the data platforms first. So we will be targeting the data platforms to say, well, I expect a reduction in my proprietary licensing bills of X%. Go and work out which databases that means. Go create toolboxes for the application team, so they can move their data onto these platforms. Does mean obviously that my teams have to build some capabilities, and they're going to drive some capabilities into the hands of the application designers so that they're all capable. People. I spoke a lot about this in culture, but we are not being good to the people we expect to deliver these, and I'm saying that as an industry. We drive hard, we push hard, we expect a lot, and people give their best, and actually we don't give them enough of everything they need. So I'll just give an example of what I mean by this. We are gamifying is probably the right word, but it doesn't sit so well when I describe the story. We're taking our cloud journey, we're setting certain certification targets, we're doing things like putting them into a pool where X number of people, I think it's 10 or 15 or whatever, of the people that certify will then be given reinvent tickets. That's the style of thing we're doing. Equally, we are saying that if you're working on a public cloud piece of work, you may not work on it if you haven't got yourself an associate level certification. So we're working really hard at making sure that the people that we're expecting to make this change are actually capable of making this change, and we've equipped them with what they need. And then our cloud enablement and migration, so you've heard that we've set ourselves a whole lot of targets. We are very, very aggressive about some of these targets. We're working really hard on it. Obviously, we have regulated requirements we have to meet, and we are working on those right now. So the dress and the shoes and the board discussion today was because I was getting approval to do some solve notifications. Then I had a question about the future. So cute little story. I have a friend. She actually used to work for IBM in the States. She now does own, actually knowledge of family school. But her and I having a conversation one day, and she actually works in machine learning. She was part of the initial Watson. Before Watson was a suite of stuff, she was part of the initial Watson AI work. And she said to me, we're developing all these robots, but we're actually really bad role models for them. So we sit and we do the work that creates their corpuses, and we're really bad role models for them. So when I had to share my idea about our future, we all know that there's no avoiding the fact that machine learning, AI, what we get to do with these, how we make everything and our journeys through our future more intelligent, this is where we are. But are we the best people to be teaching these robots how to go? So this is just my interesting reflection, my cute little story. So I think the future's scary, but going back to the courage we need to bring to bear, going back to the curiosity we need to bring to bear, I think that's exciting. I think that the things we were scared about 5 years ago, we like today, we just do them. They're part of what we do and how we do it. We're over it. We just need to realize that every time these junctions come at us, they come at us because we're just on the next. And it's always going to be a next. It's a very interesting conversation that I had in the office. We had to move seating plans in the office. And we're IT, right? We do change. We do change all the time. We have to change ourselves, we have to develop ourselves, we have to learn new things. But try and change a technologist's chair. Try and move them out their chair. And I had to stand with this person and say, dude, all you do every day is change. And you won't move your seat. Like, can you help me, please? Anyway, we need to be ready. So I think my comment about today's future becomes tomorrow's reality is really that. We're just at that next junction and we need to be preparing ourselves for what becomes mundane next. It's exciting. We need to be courageous. We need to be brave. We need to drop the permission, work on forgiveness later, but focus it on the value that what you're doing has. I also have a very interesting mental space on the merging of the physical and digital world. And go back to my comments about human beings being bad role models for robots. Think about our AI outcomes. Think about where we're interacting lately with. It's fun right now. I mean, we don't have lots that are very meaningful in our immediate spaces. But think about the fun we have at events and expos. We speak to a robot and they tell you which age is, and they tell me I'm male first and then female later, and I'm 46 once and 27 later. So we're having a bit of fun with it right now. But there's a lot we, as the representatives of this IT space, need to do to build a foundation for it. So while it's all fun now, this is going to become how we live. We're going to live in a world where things are answered for you, things are done for you, and all we're doing is bringing up this foundation of capabilities that we're allowing people to leverage. So I think we've got big shifts we need to be ready for. I think that we really need to reflect on how we're preparing ourselves. I did a discussion recently at the Red Hat Summit, and one of the comments I made is that what are you doing every day to sharpen your axe? So those rabbit holes you go down, the things you learn, I saw loads of you from Briefing Code, so you guys don't get sharpened enough because that's all you're doing all day, is sharpening your axe. But it needs to be very deliberate. We need to not fall back and decide, well, we've arrived. We've arrived because I can do these 5 things. I'm sitting in a role that I'm now comfortable in. I've got myself to a level of my career where it's great. If we're not feeling every day of our lives that we need to be learning something, changing our world, going down those rabbit holes, questioning things, lifting things up to see what's happening under them, we are failing ourselves and we're diminishing the value This world is changing so fast, and it's not going to slow down. If I look at the speed of change that I have to facilitate, it's no longer a case of being comfortable running a technology for 5 years and letting it sweat itself out. I can't do that anymore. The world changes before I can even financially get the value out of something. How are we changing ourselves to prepare ourselves for life? And it's about us. It's about how we've equipped ourselves to be part of that change. So the hashtag is best version of yourself, and it needs to be very focused. And I'm happy to answer any questions.